Hell hath no limits, nor is circumscribed in one self place, for where we are is hell, and where hell is, must we ever be. Bring Out the Beer is written and directed by Richard Waters, who's done shorts as well as a full-length feature called In a Stranger's House, which I need to get around to checking out at some point because I have heard some good things about it. And this is filmed in Wicklow, Ireland, mainly in the woods. When it comes to horror movies, nothing bad ever happens in the woods, especially when you're a couple going through a rough patch. Sierra Bailey's Rosie and Tad Morari's, just a tad of Morari as it were, he plays Dan, and yeah, there is a bit of a rough patch that they're going through that you find out a little bit later on what's going on. I'm going to keep that for the spoiler section, but they take a walk through the woods, trying to get through this rough patch, and there's a proposal, and then there's kind of like, well, kind of waffling back and forth, not really sure what, what they're going to do, what they're not going to do, and then it turns out they get lost in the woods. But is it all in their head? Are they happy? They're feeling sad. They got sunshine in a bag. They're useless, but not for long. These woods just keep dragging on. Boy, the gorillas are really going to hate me there. If you guys get that reference, I love you guys. But yes, they are trapped in the woods and they are panicking because food is running short. It seems like time is just standing still. Time is a flat circle, and basically everything just gets really, really maddening. They're stuck in the woods. How will they ever get out? And from there, we have a 73-minute horror movie that basically plays out like a stretched out short, but as far as a concept and as far as the acting and as far as the cinematography and as far as, technically this movie is quite good. Bit anticlimactic there. I usually wait a little bit longer to reveal how I feel about a movie, but this is quite good. I'm not going to say it's perfect. I think there were a few issues with it, but by and large, the acting, it's beautifully shot. I did have one issue with some of the camera work. There are some moments where the camera just gets thrown around like this. And at times I understood, oh boy, I got a headache from doing that. God, I can only imagine how much of a headache the camera people get doing that. But there were a few times where I felt that was a little bit, I don't know, But by and large, this movie gets a lot of positive praise because this is really deeply unsettling and actually makes a whole lot of sense. And while a simple story, it's also a little bit complex when it comes to relationships and going through rough patches and basically an allegory for, if somebody fucks up in a relationship or something gets fucked up in a relationship and it's the fault of one person, there usually are things that happen on the other side that lead to certain things existing and certain things that bubble up under the surface and certain feelings that burst out. And there are some good creepy images, and being lost in the woods would certainly be, is certainly high on my fears because that's pretty much why I don't really go into the woods. Well, that, and I'm not really much of a walker, not even a Texas Ranger. I don't even play one on camera. But nevertheless, the movie ends up being pretty unsettling and pretty well done. And Sierra Bailey and just a tad of Morari, they do pretty good. I was a little bit worried we were going to get a film like Significant Other. I will say right now, this is not like Significant Other. This actually feels a little more real, like something actually could happen like this, even though, yes, there are fanciful moments and a bit of weirdness. But as far as the acting, these two do a really good job. And with the minimalist cast, there are 6 people technically, and like only 5 people get dialogue out of all that. It's very much a minimalist movie, but it works. It absolutely works. Again, even with the issues I have with it, maybe the fact that it's just a short film concept stretched out and the camera work, a bit of wonky camera work that gives me a little bit of a headache. Overall, I get exactly why they presented it the way they did, and it's one of the better movies I've seen this year. One of the better indie movies I've seen in quite a while. While not perfect, definitely quite good. I am going to get into spoilers here in just a bit. It's a few bucks on Amazon if you want to check it out. That's what you do. You support the artist. That way they can make, movies like this or movies a little more, of a budget or whatever. They can expand on their ideas. And you know what? This is one of the better ideas and one of the better indie horror movies that I've seen in quite a while. And I'd like to see what else Richard Waters can do in the future. So anyway, let's get into spoilers. 3, 2, 1, spoilers! Okay. So basically, it turns out that Rosie had cheated on Dan for whatever reason. Maybe she felt suffocated by the relationship. Maybe she didn't feel loved enough. Maybe she felt like Dan was trying to rush things, whatever the reason is. Cheating happened. It's a guy, Eric, played by James Devlin, not Jordan Devlin, because they're completely different names. And he's confronted at near the beginning of the movie by Dan. Basically says, oh, it may have just been that one thing, but I'm going to make her happy, damn it. And then he proposes to her in the woods. And then when she refuses that, then things start to go completely off the goddamn rails. She starts hearing voices in the trees. He starts seeing weird things. Their food supply runs low. Their phones don't have a very good signal. The compasses don't work and all that. And all the usual bumps in the night and all that. And there are these weird wood carvings that it's like almost a face carved out on a little bit of log. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's log, it's bare and bad, and you're going to be dead. That is not exactly how the rhyme works, but nevertheless. Creepy imagery. It's kind of almost like a Blair Witch Project was centered around a fractured relationship. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. And then from there, we get we get where Dan's having his own issues. Rosie's having her own issues. They eventually come to blows, almost like, verbal blows. He had thrown away the ring at one point, then picked it back up. Like, a lot of this stuff's going on, and it basically relies on the strength of the two actors, because there's not a ton of material as far as dialogue here. And that's not a knock, it's more of an imagery movie, it's more of an experience. And then eventually Dan disappears because he sees Eric out there, and he's going to freak out. James Devlin's character, he's freaking out. Well, then he vanishes, and now Rosie's all freaking out. And then at one point it seems like everything's done. She puts on the ring because she finds the ring stuck on this stick. And then suddenly, Dan's there. Takes her home to the car that they suddenly are able to get to, conveniently. They get home. Everything's fine. But then she takes the ring off. And he rushes at her because obviously it's not Dan. Because of course it's not Dan. Whatever it is, whatever evil this is, it's not Dan. Then she's back in the woods. And then she gets in a fight with Dan. He starts to crush her larynx, but then she grabs a stick and pokes him in the eye and then beats him to death with a rock. Or maybe it's not Dan. Maybe she's just beating Eve and trying to get out of this toxic relationship. Because Dan doesn't actually seem like a great guy, neither does Rosie. And then she gets to the edge of the woods, sees this couple, and she's freaking out because she can't quite say enough and everything. And oh no, she's going to be caught. She's going to be caught in the woods forever in a time loop. And then the couple finds her, the two girls. I mean, I don't know if they're actually a couple, if they are good for them, but maybe they're two friends. I don't know. They could be two star-crossed lovers for all I know. But they find her. She's in the hospital, and she's in the bed and suddenly sees the ring. And then we fade to black. That's pretty much it right there. There's not a lot really to review here because it is more of a movie that you need to experience. But as far as, again, any negatives, it's just the throwing of the camera around, and I think sometimes a couple it's an expedient movie, but also because of the short film concept stretched out, sometimes it feels like there are a few parts where, okay, we've seen this before, it's all been done before. But I got to give Richard Waters credit because this was quite good. The acting was quite good, and it gets a B+. I highly recommend you guys watch this, even though it seems like, oh, I had a few criticisms. I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good, and I look forward to seeing what else Richard Waters can do in the future. So yeah, B+. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Recklin. I'll see you soon.